The focus of this rewind is the original League of Legends lineup that made the organization champions and redefined how the world viewed North American LoL. Cloud9 is a name synonymous with North American League of Legends excellence. In 15 splits in the LCS, C9 has appeared in a staggering 9 finals. As much as the organization is famed for its ability to reformulate their squad and bring in new talent, 4 of those finals and 2 of those 3 titles in the trophy cabinet were won by one 5-man lineup. High, Meteos, Sneaky, Balls and Lemonation were a sensation upon arriving in the LCS, elevating NA League of Legends to a new stratosphere and showing the region had smart and diligent players who were pushing to become relevant on the international stage at a time when NA was considered a laughingstock. This is the tale of that team and the winning tradition they helped establish, which was again revived earlier this year. Here is the story of how 5 nobodies became champions. The name Cloud9 appeared in League of Legends prior to the full lineup that made the name famous. Early in 2013, High and Lemonation competed under the name at the first ever LCS qualifier. The core of the team, including Wild Turtle, had played for organisations like Orbit and Quantic the prior year. This qualification attempt would be unsuccessful and saw a number of key players departing in the following months, with the challenger scene a loose collection of lands at that time, and LCS considered the only real game in town for professional level players. Competing in a number of online cups, the Cloud9 lineup was routinely making the final and picking up pieces as they went. Balls had competed at the same LCS qualifier but as an AD carry, and now role swapped back to top lane and joined up with High and Lemon. Meteos was the next to be lured in, a hot-headed jungler who played for thousands of solo queue games but competed only rarely and was discovered by then C9 AD carry Wild Turtle. Though the lineup looked to be set, winning the MLG Summer Promotion qualifier offline, Wild Turtle was called up to replace Chaox as the AD carry of TSM late in the LCS split. A pentakill later, and C9 were again needing one final piece of the puzzle. Joining the Quantic organisation, they attempted to make it a 2-way trade, asking Chaox to join, but the former TSM player instead chose to travel Asia. Sneaky Castro, soon to become just Sneaky, was another LCS qualifier casualty, and after being recommended to the team by his ex-manager, accepted an offer to join and round out the lineup. Now the clear dominant force in the challenger scene, picking up more offline victories, Quantic stormed into the LCS Summer Split qualifiers with more than just the pressure of being hailed as the next LCS team on their shoulders. TSM, champions of the Spring Split, had revealed that this amateur team was winning games off them in practice, and the league was abuzz with what this new squad could potentially accomplish. Quantic easily swept aside complexity in the qualification match, jungler Meteos not dying a single time over the 2 series it had taken to make the LCS. Jack Etienne, an online business mogul and former TSM manager, saw his chance and bought out the Quantic lineup for $10,000 and formed Cloud9 as a real esports organisation. The hype from LCS players about C9's scrim form proved more than justified, as the team were a revelation in the summer split. In their first 3 games, they beat Dignitas, TSM and Curse, 3 of the spring's best teams, and the streak went up to 5 before High and Company suffered their first loss. This was no beginner's luck though, as the team continued to roll over the competition with far too much ease for such inexperienced players. C9 had swept said team en route to an unbelievable 25-3 record, an 89% win rate. Those 3 losses had been a lone upset at CLG's hands early and 2 hard-fought wins by Vulcan, the team who had improved from their semi-final spring playoff performance to emerge as the only true contenders to C9's dominance. Meteos was the talk of the Western scene, as his heavy farming jungling style, famously on champions like Nasus and Zac, saw him ganking only when it was a sure thing, and otherwise farming up to become so strong that he resembled a carry in his own right come the team fights. And what team fights those were. As much as C9 were praised for their understanding of macro concepts like when to fight a dragon or rotate to take towers, they were near unbeatable in full-scale team fights. Balls in his rumble were always landing key damage and ultimates. High would help the other lanes get ahead, and this split was very much in his individual prime. The bottom lane, expected to be the weakest portion of the map, would play matchups like Ashe and Zyra, hold their own and then land the key skill shots and do the necessary damage in fights to make C9 a force few could reckon with. Playoff nerves would have been understandable after such a monster regular portion to the split, but C9 didn't do nerves. They easily bowled past Dignitas in a 2-0 sweep in the semi-finals, securing themselves a World Championship spot, and would surprisingly face TSM in the final. Last split's champs had upset Vulcan in the semi-finals, ensuring they would also make the trip to Worlds. All that was left was to decide who would take the #1 seed. Cloud9 didn't need to say much, as they again stayed true to their form and swept TSM 3-0 in the final, making that 7 wins in 7 games against Reggie and the gang over the summer split. C9 had finished the split with a 30-3 overall record and had a winning record against every team in the league but Vulcan. They would go to the Season 3 World Championship as North America's #1 seed and best hope of a deep run. While North America had been dominated by C9 and Vulcan, with the latter falling off in the playoffs and having to grab a consolation 3rd and final seed for Worlds, many wondered if that meant C9 were particularly strong or NA was particularly weak. It had been a contrasting tale over Europe, as most of the teams in the league had contended for the top spot at times, with it being traded between 4 different teams, and the last week seeing 7 teams in position for a playoff spot before a tiebreaker decided which one would miss out. After the playoffs, Fnatic had again shown themselves to be Europe's best, going back-to-back in titles, but with the key distinction being that they had kicked support N-rated early in the split, swapped AD carry Yellowstar over to support, and brought in the unknown Pushu to play AD carry. Where NA had been teamfighting and dragon fights, Europe continued to be the land of the power mid laners, as every contender seemingly boasted a monster mid laner who would get farmed up and roam the map, deleting the other team's players. Many Europeans boasted that High would be in trouble when he faced such powerful star players, just as they anticipated Meteos would struggle against the gank-heavy style of junglers like Diamond Prox and Dexter. The format of the World Championship at that time saw the #1 seed from NA automatically seeded into the quarterfinals, while an all-stars defeat meant Europe's top seed had to play out the group stage. Fnatic would emerge from their group in first place and drew Cloud9 in their round of 8 matchup, an immediate meeting of the 2 regions' top seeds and a chance for an epic battle in that long-established NA-EU rivalry. With Fnatic having beaten the like of Spring Korean champions MVP Ozone and Europe's Gambit, many European fans no doubt expected them to humiliate C9 in their matchup and prove which region was superior. The first game looked on course for such a result, with Xpeke's Kassadin frustrating C9. For Game 2 of what back then was only a best-of-3 series, C9 showed their own power, winning a 39-minute game in which Balls, Meteos and Sneaky all had big performances. The decider would come to be known as the Just Ban Kassadin game, as another Xpeke selection of that champion yielded an even bigger beatdown for NA's finest than Game 1. After only 3 games, Cloud9's world run had ended. The off-season brought fresh opportunities for Cloud9 to redeem themselves, as twice they would be able to face top European competition again. At IEM Cologne in Germany, they fell to a revitalised Gambit in the semi-finals. At the Battle of the Atlantic, a series of exhibition matches hosted by Riot, C9 scored a little revenge with a 2-game sweep over Fnatic, who now featured young star AD carry Reckless in their starting lineup, securing the overall title for NA. Before the spring split of Season 4 could begin, C9 already faced a new threat, as the TSM they had so easily dealt with for all of the last split retooled into a dangerous new form by bringing in a strong European mid laner to replace owner Reginald. Bjergsen had been one of the rising talents of the EU LCS and would now be going head-to-head with High at least 4 times a split. The opening game of the split was TSM versus C9, and as if to show how unfazed he was by the arrival of TSM's hot new prospect, High flexed his unorthodox approach to the game by picking mid Teemo, and C9 won the opener. By the end of week 4, C9 were at an 8-2 record and were second in the league behind a TSM whose only loss had been the aforementioned opening game. C9 headed to Europe to Katowice, Poland for the IEM Season 8 World Championship event hosted by ESL. Winning out a group of mixed international competition, C9 reached the semi-finals and a much-anticipated rematch with Fnatic. EULCS had begun earlier than NA's, and Fnatic were far from the top dogs, sitting at a 50% win rate. The series would follow a familiar script. Fnatic won the opener with explosive assassin play from Xpeke, only for C9 to respond back with a strong team effort to level the series. The decider again went the Europeans' way, though this time with Xpeke opting into a less orthodox for him Ziggs pick and letting Reckless carry the day on Sivir. Back on NA soil, TSM would battle C9 all the way down to the last week, finishing with an impressive 22-6 record, but C9 again proved imperious. Reaching the mark of 24-4, only a single game won fewer than their previous seemingly impossible split run, C9 were very much still insistent they would be defending their LCS crown. In the playoffs, the semi-finals were again an afterthought as C9 easily tossed aside I Will Dominate's curse in a 2-0 sweep. In the final, it would be the matchup the split had begun with and been leading to all along as TSM competed in their third straight split final in a row. As stellar as Bjergsen had been all split, without a doubt the strongest individual mid laner, he would get a lesson in the thinking man's game of League of Legends in the final. In the semis, he had narrowly bested CLG's Link, a young NA star and strong mid in his own right, but the final was less about skill and more about cerebral power. C9 toyed with TSM as they cruised to another sweep, and Hai was again lifting an LCS trophy while his detractors struggled to figure out how he kept doing it. This game was more than merely mechanics, and he had proven it to critical acclaim, even if fans might not have caught up yet. Bjergsen had rightfully been the season MVP, but the playoffs MVP went to Hai. The development of Meteos proved key to this title run, with the farming jungler transforming his style to embrace champions like Elise, Lee Sin, Evelynn and Kha'Zix, loudly rebuking Critic who thought him to have been figured out or his limitations charted. Sneaky also quickly adopted the Lucian, which has since gone on to become one of his signature champions. C9 were reinventing themselves when necessary and proving their first title was far from a fluke, but instead a winning tradition they planned on continuing for some time yet. In part 2, I'll tell the story of C9's much more contested battle with TSM for future titles and the hunt for that big international run they so keenly sought.